When you think of the word GOAT in sport, who springs to mind?
Ronaldo.
Novak Djokovic.
LeBron James.
Lewis Hamilton. Serena Williams.
Michael Phelps.
There's something all of these legends have in common. And it's not just talent, hard work, or even genetics. It's the fact they're all born in the 1980s. They all grew up in a time before social media. No endless notifications, no viral distractions, just pure obsessive focus on their crafts. But every generation since then, athletes born in the 90s, the 2000s, and now the incoming generation of 2010s has been hit with something different. Something that's stopping them from reaching that same level of dominance. And if you don't learn to overcome it, you'll never unlock your true potential as an athlete. So what changed? And why can't modern athletes stay locked in? Well, let's get started. Quick one, if you want to know and be able to use the top mental tools that I train elite athletes in as a mental performance coach, then download my completely free guide, Game Ready, using the link below. Locking in. You hear this phrase all the time in sports, but what does it actually mean? Well, let's not overcomplicate it. Locking in is just the ability to be fully present. It's about being completely focused on the single task in front of you, with zero attention being pulled away by distractions or other external noise. When an athlete is locked in, nothing else exists. There's no overthinking, there's no second guessing, no wandering mind. It's being in the zone, it's flow state, it's pure execution and no thinking. Think Steph Curry raining down 3 after 3, Messi dribbling through 5 defenders, or Djokovic looking like a man possessed during a tiebreaker. These athletes have mastered the ability to stay in the moment, regardless of pressure, stakes, or what's happening around them. But here's the problem. Modern athletes are struggling to lock in like this. Why? Because today's world is designed to steal your focus. Every few seconds you get a new notification, a DM, a highlight reel, a viral clip. Your brain is constantly being fed quick dopamine hits from social media, video games, and endless scrolling. And the more you feed this habit, the harder it becomes to focus for long periods of time. And honestly, it's showing. Look at the younger generation of athletes, the ones born in the late 90s, 2000s, and now the 2010s. They have more talent than ever, better training facilities, more access to elite coaching, and endless developments in sports science to maximize their game. But what they don't have is the same deep obsessive focus that the legends before them had. Because when your mind is trained to jump from one thing to another every 5 seconds, well, how do you expect to stay locked in during a 2-hour training session? How do you expect to stay fully present in the final moments of a game when the pressure is at its highest? Do you think Ronaldo and Messi spent hours a day watching skill compilations of their favorite players and endless 30-second TikToks or reels on all these tips and tricks to improve their performance? No, because they didn't have that option. They had no choice but to lock in because that was the only choice. There was no bullshitting themselves into thinking they were getting better by just watching all of the performance enhancing content out there. And the truth is, distractions aren't just wasting your time. They're rewiring your brain, making it harder to focus, harder to train with intensity, and harder to perform under pressure. So if you're constantly distracted, it's not just a bad habit. It's a fundamental shift in how your brain works. Because focus is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. But if you're constantly jumping from one thing to another, then your brain is never in a deep state of concentration. And just like a weak muscle, your ability to focus shrinks. And here's how this plays out in your performance. Let's say you're in a game. The pressure is on, you need to lock in, but your brain, it's used to just jumping around, looking for quick hits of dopamine. So what happens? You start overthinking. You react slower, you struggle to stay fully present. One mistake throws you off completely because your mind isn't trained to handle long stretches of pure focus. Specifically, if we want to get scientific here, the act of constantly shifting your attention, it lowers your cognitive endurance because of attentional residue. In other words, every time you switch tasks, part of your focus remains stuck on the previous one. This makes it harder to fully concentrate, meaning that your ability to stay locked in for an entire match, a full training session, or even a single crucial moment gradually weakens. But here's the real problem. Every time you give into a distraction, you make it harder to focus the next time. Let's say you're in the middle of a solo training session and you check your phone between sets of drills. That's a tiny break in concentration, but what your brain is learning is this: whenever I'm slightly bored or uncomfortable, I can escape. Now fast forward to a bad game. You miss a shot or you make a bad pass. What does your brain do? It looks for an escape. And that's why so many athletes today struggle to stay locked in after mistakes. But the greatest athletes in history, they don't have this problem. Their focus is a weapon. It doesn't break, it doesn't get pulled away. And that's a skill that they've built over time. But the good news is you can build it too. So let's now talk through 3 super practical things that you can apply to build your ability to stay locked in. So first up is the 90-minute rule. Just like you train your body to get stronger, you need to train your mind to focus for longer periods. And one of the best ways to do this is the 90-minute rule. Elite performers often structure their training and practice into 90-minute blocks of uninterrupted deep work. Why? Because research shows that 90 minutes is the optimal length for sustained, high-quality focus before needing a break. So here's how you can apply. Firstly, when you train, eliminate all distractions possible. No phone, no unnecessary noise, just pure focus. If you have your phone for listening to music, that's fine, but turn it on Do Not Disturb mode so that you don't get distracted or interrupted by notifications. And then after this, set a timer for 90 minutes and just commit to being fully present for the entire session. In between sets, do not reach for your phone. Instead, just focus on your breathing for those 1 to 2 minutes. Take a sip of water, walk around if you're feeling a bit fidgety, but don't succumb to the temptation of distraction. Now, if your current ability to lock in is non-existent, you'll probably need to start with a smaller time frame before gradually working up to this 90-minute window. It may initially be 30 minutes, that's completely fine, everyone has to start somewhere. But each week, try adding on another 10 minutes or so, and that way you will build the mental stamina necessary to stay fully focused and locked in. Okay, so next up is if-then planning. This is one of my favorite mental tools of all time and can be applied in so many different contexts. But specifically for helping you build the ability to lock in, these are all about rewiring your default reactions and decisions in certain situations. And the truth is, most athletes fail to stay locked in because they react to distractions instead of preparing for them. So here's how they work. Firstly, you identify your biggest distractions, your phone, social media, negative thoughts, whatever it is. And then you create a very simple if-then plan to counter them. For example, if I feel the urge to check my phone during training, then I will leave it in my bag until the session is over. When you do this, your brain already knows what to do when distractions show up, making it much easier to stay focused under pressure. Now, this one does take a lot of conditioning. Just like your physical and technical skills, mental skills like this require a lot of reps. Some of you will struggle with this initially because falling victim to distractions has become a hardwired response for you. So you need to apply patience and diligence to this. You're essentially untangling all those hardwired responses and then rewiring them into healthier, more productive alternatives. If this was easy, then everyone would do it and everyone would become a pro or fulfill their potential as an athlete. So you will need to push through resistance, but this technique over time, it primes your brain to go with the new default, a new desirable response to all those temptations, distractions, and other obstacles that can just cause you to lose focus and your concentration. And then the third thing you should do is create a no distraction zone. Most athletes struggle with focus because they allow distractions into their environment in the first place. If your phone is sitting next to you, then your mind is already thinking about checking it. Or if you leave notifications on during training or competition, then your attention is already divided. And the worst part of this is that you're just giving your focus away without even realizing it. Think about it. When you're constantly pulled in multiple directions, responding to texts, checking social media, or thinking about other things, it feels like your mind is scattered. You're not fully present. The training session feels fragmented. Your game feels out of sync. You might even feel anxiety creeping in as your mind flits between tasks and you start to lose track of what actually matters most. But when you commit to creating a no distraction zone, everything changes. You will experience a dramatic shift in your mindset and performance. Here's how to do it. Firstly, before training or competition, eliminate every possible distraction. So you should put your phone on airplane mode or leave it in another room. You should then also remove any other potential distractions from your environment, whether that's unnecessary conversations, background noise, or anything that just might pull your focus away. If you have specific thoughts that you get distracted on, such as fears of making mistakes or worrying about what others think of you, something I recommend athletes do is write these down on sticky notes or scraps of paper and then throw them in the bin. This simple act is taking that distraction out of your head and literally throwing it away. Super simple, but super effective. And then lastly, also be sure to set clear intention for the performance or the training session, that this is your time to lock in and nothing else matters. Once you create a no distraction zone and make it a consistent habit, then everything shifts. Suddenly you're no longer at the mercy of your environment. You control it. The noise fades away and you can begin to experience a clarity and calm that just wasn't there before. Now, you're not only present in the moment, you're deeply engaged with it. Every rep, every play, every decision becomes deliberate, with your mind fully focused on the task at hand. This is the powerful shift that top athletes experience. They aren't constantly battling distractions. They've created an environment that makes locking in inevitable. The mind no longer chases every random thought or outside influence. Instead, it's anchored in the present, focused on the process, and their performance improves as a result. Now, even if you manage to get to a point where you can stop getting distracted by external factors, I know that athletes still struggle with a lot of internal chatter. And this can sometimes be an even worse blockage that stops you from locking in. So to overcome this, check out this next video here.